Yo, what's going on? My name is Jay and I'm a one-wheel enthusiast, much like yourself. And today I have a really cool opportunity to have a first-hand look at the Funwheel X7, Fungineer's flagship one-wheel VESC-based board. In this Fungineer's overview, I'll be going over a handful of things. One, I'll be going through each of the major components inside the Funwheel X7 and also talking about a handful of other Fungineer related topics. I'll be going through an entire hardware assembly guide and then also going through the programming software side of the Funwheel X7. To make your life easier, somewhere up here on the screen I will be including timestamps for all the chapters of this entire overview so that you can click around and go to the part where you're most interested in. Just so that we all are on the same page though, Fungineers did give me all of this free of charge. The only thing Fungineers has asked of me is to be as honest and truthful as possible. And that's what I plan on doing. But without further ado, let's get this ride going. So the first piece on our list is the Fungineer's front controller box. This box is nothing short than a beautiful piece of artwork. Beyond the impeccable craftsmanship of the CNC box itself, the box is packed full of a bunch of features. It has the Thor 300, which is arguably the most capable 20S controller with regen on the market. This controller is nearly unoverheatable. With its incredibly high performance, unexposed MOSFETs, I'm looking at you, fucker. The aluminum base power PCB in the entire controller box acts as one big heatsink. Even with its high performance, it's very unlikely that you'll ever have any overheating issues with this controller. It stays ice cold. But here is a list of a bunch of other really good qualities and advantages it hosts. Yeah, it's still going. Inside of this ABS and fiberglass box rests our 20S 2P Molicel P28A battery. This battery has a capacity that of about 30% more than a stock XR with about 403 watt hours, so around 15 to 20-ish miles, and can reach speeds of about 30 miles per hour. Our BMS is a Bluetooth smart BMS, allowing us to see the individual health of each cell. This is crucial for the hell we're about to be putting this box through. This battery pack also has its own lights pre-installed, just waiting to be plugged in and configured. But unfortunately, this box does have a few weaker qualities that I'm not super fond of. That mainly being the BMS. Sorry, pause. I have to interject real quickly. So while recording this, a few things happened. One, my BMS malfunctioned and stopped working. It showed an inaccurate state of charge for my battery, then stopped charging. I contacted Fungineers about this and they sent me a new BMS and it should be here by the end of the week and they're going to help me troubleshoot and then fix this. As of this moment, it's very rough. Other people have been having some other pretty bad issues with it too, but hopefully by the time this video gets published, all those rough edges should be ironed out. The BMS is quite large, only having a good snug home inside of this box, but I don't believe it's meant for any other type of DIY build. And the native app used with the BMS is quite clunky and unintuitive. But at the price point of this unit, I feel like those parts can be overlooked. I mean, you're not going to find any other battery box on the market that is UN certified at this price. This next piece of hardware that we're about to talk about is what I would consider to be the crown jewel of the entire Fungineers collection. The Superflex hub motor is the most sought after piece of hardware for any true one-wheel VESC-based board. So much that it's the only motor I can now stomach riding. This 2,000 to 4,000 watt motor with more than 50 Newton meters of torque in a free spin of over 60 miles per hour or 100 kilometers per hour with field weakening. This motor is an absolute beast that most of the controllers would struggle to fully utilize without ever overheating. I'm looking at you, fucker. I have but one golden rule that I use whenever I'm riding a Superflex, and that is, if I have clearance, I'm gonna make it over top of it. There's no lack of power or torque here, but I have found that the true power of the Superflex motor can be fully tapped in with a larger tire. There is a second version of the Superflex motor, that being the HT motor or the high torque motor. That one has over 100 Newton meters worth of torque, an ungodly amount of power, but at quite noticeably less speeds. It's really only fully utilized on high voltage boards or with super heavy riders, but I do feel that 90% of people will get along just fine with the HS motor. Holding our entire board together are the X7 rails. These rails are made from 7075 aircraft grade aluminum. And these rails are my preferred rail system, giving an asymmetrical angle with an aggressive riding style, with the tail being raised a bit higher and the nose being dropped a bit lower. We have a 3.5 degree tilt on both sides, so about 7 in total, hence the name X7. My favorite option on these rails are the lower and raising options. If I want more of a floating city XR ride feel, I'll drop it down to the lower setting. But if I'm seeking a ride that I'm going on trails and I want the most clearance possible and I'm okay with a higher center of gravity, like a GT feel, I'll raise it to the higher one. These rails are super versatile. And these are the newly refurbished and redesigned Stompy foot pads. They're a mellow concave foot pad with a really cool status light bar on the side. These also come with a really nice 4mm foam grip tape. At the moment of recording, they're a bit on the unsensitive side. Whoa, I'm here again. The initial foot pads that were sent to me were very insensitive, so much that I couldn't get the board to engage. I talked to Fungineers about this and they immediately sent me out a new foot pad and it arrived by the end of the week. Most likely, by the time that this video is released, I've been told there should be a V2 foot pad, which should be a lot smoother. But right now I have one and it gets the job done. But by the time that this video is released, they should be in a much better spot. They also have this really cute little AirTag holder in the middle, so just for like tracking purposes and whatnot, I thought that was pretty nice. Okay, well, that was over a lot quicker than I had expected it to be. We do need to talk about a few things Fungineer related though. Hello, I'm back again. We do need to address the elephant in the room. If you're at all familiar with Fungineers, you've probably have heard of all the issues that they've gone through. From the quality of the bearings, to the messed up KV windings, all the shipping logistic issues, and now some of the final quality assurance issues with the final Funwheel X7 build. To say that they have gone through it would be putting it kindly. Whereas they have made a lot of friends, they've also made a lot of enemies. But just for a second, can you entertain a different perspective with me? Let's look at where Fungineers started. For a long time, Fungineers has been refining the DIY one-wheel vest-based board out of their own garage. Throughout their efforts and the immense efforts of the vest community, and through painful iteration over and over and over again, we have finally arrived to where we are now. And it's through that iteration that these products become perfected. It's important to not get these dudes mixed up with corporate companies like Future Motion, which have all the factories and shipping logistic advantages in their back pocket. They're not some autonomous, perfect machine like Amazon. They're a DIY group of people just like you and I. Fungineers is not perfect by any means. It's not my intention to excuse Fungineers for all the mistakes that have been made so far. They have been made. That has happened. But what makes them great is that they are actively working with the community to improve their standards and to improve the products that they have. This is a much different course than, I don't know, what other large companies do. I mean, just consider what the most popular one-wheel company does right now and how they choose to solve their issues behind locked doors, how they deny basic information to their riders, upcharge massively on basic parts, and are actively against our right to repair and own our own boards. I mean, at the end of the day, I have to ask the question, which one of these companies is ran by stockholders and which one of these companies is ran by people? Consider that when you want to buy a one-wheel. So, I guess we got to put it all together now. Alright, first let's grab our controller box and the screws that come along with it. And let's grab our battery box and the screws that come along with it too. Let's be careful with the XD60 here, as it is a live battery lead. You don't want to lick it or stick a pair of scissors down it. Let's go ahead and take off the cable gland on the controller box and set it to the side. All you have to do is twist it off. Now let's take an M3 Allen wrench and we're going to unscrew each of the lid screws to get access to the controller box. Now let's take off the last part of the cable gland on the controller box. Let's unscrew the nut on the wire harness's cable gland. Then let's carefully feed all of our connectors through the cable gland port into the controller box. Now let's take our wire harness's cable gland and screw it into the box. Our first step is to take the LED connector and connect it into the Thor. The connector we're looking for is directly underneath the light bar. So we're going to take an M3 Allen wrench, unscrew the light bar, plug in the connector, screw it back in. First, I'm going to plug in the charge port, which is the smaller XT30. Then I'm going to plug in the battery lead, which is the XT60. Take note of how you plug in this connector. The polarity should be correct. Red should be running to red and black should be running to black. Now there are some companies that don't follow this rule, but when you do connect this XT60 together, you're going to have a little bit of a spark. Don't worry, it's completely safe. It's the inrush current of the capacitors on the Thor filling up. Note that if you unplug and replug over and over again the connector, you'll slowly wear it out. So to preserve itself, it's best to only unplug and replug it when you absolutely have to. Now let's put our lid back onto the controller box with our M3 Allen wrench. At this point, you can press the power button and it should turn on. Now your LEDs may or may not work right out of the box. Mine didn't, but don't worry about it. We're going to configure them properly later down the line. Just make sure that they both turn on. Now we're going to attach the controller and battery box onto our rails. I prefer to install the harness side first, as it's easier to install the motor on the next step. Before we tie down the rails, we're going to check and see how much slack we have on our wire harness. I'm going to line them up roughly where they need to be, and I'm going to look and see how much slack we have remaining in our wire harness. We're going to have to tighten up that slack a little bit so that the wire harness doesn't rub up against our motor. To do that, put it roughly where it needs to be, unscrew the cable gland a little bit, and just stuff it back up inside. Do this carefully and make sure that your wire harness doesn't do anything weird inside of the box. You could honestly just keep the lid off for this point and then pull it in, but I knew I would be safe if I just did it blindly. Once we've got the harness at an appropriate length, I'm going to start screwing in the rails to the boxes with our M5 Allen wrench. You're going to be putting screws in the holes that I have highlighted. Don't follow exactly what I do in the video, as I put them in the wrong holes like an amateur and I had to pull them out later on. So follow the diagram that I just put up. Now, let's grab the Superflex. I'm going to lay down the entire assembly onto the wheel, making sure that the harness lays inside of the retaining channel on the axle itself. Screw in our hub bolts. Then I'm going to flip over, twist to the correct orientation our motor connector, then plug it in to the controller box. I'm going to screw in the rails to the battery box first, then the motor. Sometimes when you're attaching the rails to the foot pads, you can tighten things too tight and it misaligns things. So make sure that everything fits first before tightening down all your screws. Unfortunately, this kit doesn't provide us with our own bumpers, so we have to source those ourselves. I chose to go with the highest quality bumpers possible, those being Float Life's Bang bumpers. So I'm going to attach our Bang bumpers to the board. You can attach all your bumpers and foot pads to the board at this stage, but for whatever reason, I like to leave my foot pad off before all the programming stuff. Don't ask me why, I just don't do it. But you can absolutely plug in your foot pad at this stage, you'll be completely fine. I also didn't realize that I had the fender deletes inside of this kit, so I don't install them now, but I do install them later on. So there's a few things I need to get out of the way before we start getting on this entire programming side. And it's that this part is only for all the parts that we just not talked about. If you have a different controller, if you have a different battery, if you have a different motor, hell, even to an extent if you have different rails, this tutorial is not for you. This is also going to be a pretty surface level tutorial. I'm not going to be explaining how we get to a lot of the values that I'm putting inside of here. That video would end up taking about 40 minutes to an hour or so. Instead, I plan on giving you a lot of conservative values to program your board with, which are definitely not tapping the full potential of your board. Because at this state, with our boards, we have the freedom to make them as powerful and unsafe as we possibly want them to be. So if you'd like to tap a little bit more into that potential after this video, you can go through and ask other people what settings you can change and what you can like push up and inflate a little bit more to get a little bit more speed and power out of it. But don't let this put you in any dismay. This should get your board to a very good operational standard. I also highly suggest that after you watch this video, that you go check out Surf Dotto's video and the Board Garage's video. These are two excellent, well-created informational videos talking about this entire programming side that goes in depth into exactly how we're getting these values and what these values do. Again, I won't be really covering that. I'm just gonna tell you what to put inside of the board to get it up and rolling. So I guess with that, all right, to get us all started, we're gonna go ahead and download VESC Tool. This is going to be the entire program that we use to get our board set up and running. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to open up VESC Tool. Turn on our Thor real quickly. I'm going to go ahead and press connect. And you should see your Thor light up just a little bit, and you'll be brought to the main screen of VESC Tool. Now, instinctually, you might think that you're already connected to Thor, but you're not. If you go to that top bar at the top and scroll all the way over to the right, you'll see Firmware, and you look down at the bottom and it says your hardware version is VESC Express. That's not the Thor. So instead, we're going to go to the bottom right corner and it says CAN bus. Go ahead and select that, let it scan, and now you'll see Thor. Go ahead and connect to that and then return it back to the bottom page. Now our hardware version should be correct and you'll see the Thor 300. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and reflash the firmware now. This is a safe thing to do anyways, just to ensure that we're on the right firmware version. And then second, later down on the road, if something weird's happening with your board and you can't figure out what value is messed up, you can always return back to this and reflash the board and start again from ground zero. So we're gonna go ahead and flash the board with the correct firmware. We're going to scroll down one and we're gonna hit our custom file. Now, before we get here, you need to go ahead and download the Thor 300 file that Fungineer provides on their website. So we're going to press choose file and it should pop up, and you see at the very top left there my Thor 300 V04. At least that's my current version that I have right now. We're going to go ahead and press that, and we're going to press upload. Now, right before we press upload, pause for 1 second. Make sure that your phone is next to your controller and that nothing else is happening on your phone. We don't want the Bluetooth connection to be disrupted here. If it gets disrupted, or if it disconnects, or if anything weird were to happen, it could brick your Thor, and you'd either have to get a new one or get an ST link and then reflash it. A bunch of work we don't want to have to do. So make sure your connection is nice and good and keep it right here. Keep it nice and simple. We're going to press upload on that custom file and go ahead and press yes on this. And it's going to start doing its thing, and now we're just going to wait. Again, I'm not going to touch her. We're not going to do anything weird. We're just going to vibe out. During this part, I hate doing this on phone. I don't like my iPhone's Bluetooth connection, and it makes me unweary that it's here, and also it takes a minute, as you see, to do updates. The Thor 300 has a USB-C port that you can direct connectly to your computer. And it makes the entire process a lot more reliable, and it makes it honestly easier to see all the values. But you can also complete all of this on your phone too, just letting you know what I prefer. See, I'm only at 50%. Bro. Alright, great. It is done doing its thing, and of course is reading the warning. Press OK, and we're just gonna let it sit for a minute. Yeah, honestly, I don't know how long I should sit here and wait for it, because it says it's supposed to restart after 10 seconds. It did restart. It did restart. Great, great. It's reset and done its thing, so let's go ahead and reconnect back to it. Let's go ahead and reconnect back. CAN bus scan. Do your CAN bus scan. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Thor 300. Now let's return back to the start page. Now we start to get into it. As you can see, my board's set on top of a milk crate here. You're gonna go ahead and wanna do something like that too. Something nice and level and make sure that the wheel is able to spin freely. The first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna press Setup Motors. We're gonna press No on loading default parameters. We're gonna press EUC and we're gonna press Next. We have a large outrunner and we're gonna press Override, change our motor poles to 30, change sensorless ERPM to 2000, and we're gonna press Next. This part is okay, we have all of our right settings, we're not gonna mess anything up. Just go ahead and press yes. All right, so obviously we do not have one battery cell in series. We have 20 S2P. So we're gonna put 20 here. Our battery capacity is 5.6. So I'm just gonna get that down to 5.6. After pressing advance, we're gonna put in our battery current. We're gonna set as -40. And our battery current max, we're gonna set for 50. Now, press next. Select direct drive. Our wheel diameter, you can make it 283, 288. This doesn't affect anything about how the board rides, but affects how the speed is calculated. So your speed might be a little bit faster or slower depending on how small or big you set the tire, but you can change this later on. It's best to take a measuring tape and measure the entire diameter and finding out exactly how big it is at the PSI that you have it set to, but more or less 283 should get us to where we need to be. Motor poles should be 30, and we're gonna press run detection in a second. Just make sure that there's nothing in the way, and let's go. Oh, yeah, actually not just go yet. We need to uncheck this. We don't need it to check over CAN bus. Okay. And it's gonna start moving. All right, so now it's given us a bunch of values. The two major ones that we need to make sure that we have right are the temperature and the sensors. Our temperature says true and we're good. And our sensors also say Hall sensors and it's good. If it says false or sensorless, you need to stop right now and go and diagnose and figure out why that is. There's probably an issue with your Hall sensors not being wired properly or something in that area. And if you want to, you can check the rest of your motor detection results by going to pev.dev or asking inside of the Discords or Facebook groups what everyone else's results look like. And you can check and see if anything seems out of place. Mine seem all right. I trust mine. I'm gonna go ahead and press OK. Right here, we're gonna make sure that our motor spins in the right way. Let's see. In my case, mine's flowing in the right way. But just in case yours goes backwards, press inverted, and then it should spin up in the right way again. Fantastic. Let's finish. The motor detection wizard set in a lot of wrong figures. So we need to go back through and manually change them to what we have going on here. So at the very top, you're gonna slide all the way to motor config, and we're gonna go to the second drop down, and we're gonna go to current. Our current max here, we're gonna set to 150. So I need to go here, 150. Current max brake, it's gonna be 150. And then we're gonna set absolute max current to 225. And we're gonna press right. After this, we're gonna go to voltage. So we're gonna click on that drop down menu again, go to voltage, and you see we have these here. We're gonna go ahead and change these. Voltage start, we're gonna change to 46. And voltage end, we're gonna change to 40. Press right. Now we're gonna go to our BMS. Now we don't have a VESC connected BMS, although we do have a BMS, it's not connected to our VESC directly. So we're gonna go ahead and select none and press right. Now let's go to temperature real quickly. We have one inside of there we're gonna change. We're gonna go to temperature, acceleration temperature decrease, go ahead and set that to 0, press right. All right, now we're gonna get into some more motor tuning stuff. We're gonna go to general, the top one, and we're gonna press FOC, F-O-C. Here we have all of those values that were given to us by the wizard, but we're gonna go all the way down here to the bottom to observer gain. We're gonna take whatever this number is and cut it in half. Most numbers work well anywhere between 7 and 8. Don't go any lower, don't go any higher. Divided by 2, 7.9. There we go. Well, 0.79, that's what I meant to say. And like you can't really even like minus it down, so you gotta have to do it like that. Press right. We're gonna go down to Hall sensors. Hall interpolation, ERPM, so we're gonna change this down to 200. Press right. Now we're gonna go down to field weakening. We're gonna set our field weakening current to 30 and field weakening start So I'm going to say 60. 60 is a good place to have that start. Press right. Now we're going to go down to advanced. Now our zero vector frequency is a very important one. It's a mysterious magic number that I don't fully understand, but this number works best down to numbers around 27 to 35. You may end up having issues later down the road that zero vector frequency is going to fix, so just kind of keep in mind where this number is. But I'm going to change this down to 27. Press right. And I'm going to scroll all the way down here just to show you this just in case. But down here at the bottom, we have our observer type, which we have currently set for MX Lemming Lambda. We're going to keep it there. Let's just press right because YOLO. All right, so at this stage, we're going to go ahead and check and make sure that our motor is functioning properly and make sure, it doesn't just do anything irrational. So let's go back to the start page. We're going to press controls and we're just going to press forwards. Yeah. Backwards. Backwards works well too. Fantastic. Listen to her go. That's Superflex motor, baby. Just as a warning, if you got adventurous and went ahead and installed refloat package before I said so, the wheel will not spin by itself in either the controls or the motor detection if refloat package is installed. We haven't talked about refloat package yet, but it's coming up. Just so you know. Let's just hear it again. I just want to hear it again. Alright, press close. Alright, now we get to the part that nearly every single person messes up, and it messes up their board. We're going to press Setup IMU. Go to IMU Configurator, and ours is already detected here. It's detecting our true thing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We would end up having to change it later on down the line, but I'm just going to press search for IMU again. You see? Now it's back. I told you it would come back. And down here at the IMU profile selector, select Balance Skateboard. Press save. We're going to go to our gyroscope calibration. We're going to let it sit and stabilize until those numbers end up staying in place, and we're going to press save. Next comes our accelerometer calibration. To do that, we're going to take our board off of this real quickly. We're going to go ahead and select accelerometer calibration. And just as a quick rundown, you'll see that we have an X and a max X. What our goal is to be able to, in a smooth and slow fashion, be able to find the value closest to 1 or the highest value that we can get. If you jerk your board around and make really unnatural movements, you might get a number that's insanely high or not naturally high. If that happens, just press clear max and find your way back to that number in a natural fashion. The way we find it is by tilting the board. As you see, if I start moving it, the number starts to move in certain directions. I could probably take it and tilt it up like this until we find exactly where 1 is or that highest value is. Make sure that this number is positive, not negative. Alright, I think I'm satisfied with about 1.015. As soon as it's stable right here, let's go ahead and press save. Same thing is going to happen, but on another axis. There we go. As you can see that this number isn't exactly 1, but it's the highest I'm going to be able to get it. So I'm going to go ahead and press save on this one. One last time. All right, that's our last one done. We have one more that we need to do. We're gonna go ahead and get our board back to a level, and we're gonna have to try to figure out where this board is gonna be naturally sitting level at. What I like to do, what you're about to see me do, is I'm gonna take a straight pair of rails and lay it across and then get a level just to sort of figure out where I want it to be. All right, let's go ahead and click orientation. And this is gonna be another one where we're gonna get it to the level where we're at and we're gonna let it stabilize. Now, it's important to know that with asymmetrical rails like this, level isn't actually level since the parts are put a little bit higher and lower in different areas. But in my opinion, I like taking the tail and raising it just a little bit higher to get the nose to be where I want it to be. I prefer to take flashcards or other types of small paper to shim underneath to be able to get it to a level that I like it at. Fold these suckers in half. And when I got it to a good place and it's stable, go ahead and press save. Same thing is going to happen here, just let it stabilize. You see how the numbers were literally freaking out there for a second. Make sure that you are on a nice level surface for all this, as level as you will want to be able to ride. After it's stabilized, press save. Now this one, we're going to take the board and tilt it to about a 45-degree angle, and that this value should hit somewhere with a degree of 45 angle. So it should be about 90 degrees or so. Pick it up, 90 degrees, save, and we did it. We're gonna go ahead and press cancel now. Cancel isn't canceling anything, it's just getting out of the wizard. And we are going to float all the way over to packages. Press on packages, and we're gonna go ahead and press, if you only see the 4 that I see here and you don't see something called refloat, go ahead and press update archive, and we should get refloat. Go ahead and install that. Woo! Go ahead and press OK. And I'm going to go ahead and just disconnect, going all the way back to the beginning. I'm going to disconnect, then reconnect to my board. And when we should open it up, we should wait a second, and we should have custom firmware load in, and you'll see our app UI. Ooh! All right, well, welcome to refloat. We're going to go ahead and press don't show again because you followed my directions and we're already on good terms. We're going to scroll on over to refloat config. We're going to go down to the specs. Down here we have our high voltage and low voltage thresholds. These two numbers we're going to change to 85 and then 60. Then press right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and connect the foot pad again. Alright, now with our foot pad on, we should be able to test whether or not it works properly. So I'm going to take my hand and press on one foot pad, see that it lights up, press on the other foot pad, see that it lights up. I'm getting 3.2 volts, which is great. 3.2 volts, fantastic. So before you go through and jump on your board, we need to make sure that it actually works. Okay, so to be able to test that our board functions properly and safely, first we're going to go to this little settings menu. We're going to go to setup, and we're going to turn on hand test mode. And now we're going to go through and just make sure that it balances correctly. All right, so essentially from here, I'm going to go ahead and turn on hand test mode. What this is going to do is that it's going to limit the amount of current that's running through our board so that we can safely test whether or not it balances. Essentially, if you did have something put in wrong, and if you were to not have this on, the board could rip out from underneath your hands and it could rip up your fingers because of the grip tape. So having hand test mode on allows us to do this pretty easily. Now let's engage our foot pad. I currently have posi on because it's easier for me to hold it with one hand with posi and demonstrate it, but you're going to have to activate both foot pads when you do this. And since the current is being limited, the board is going to feel weird and soggy. It's hard to describe, but the board's going to act really weird and soggy. That's supposed to happen. So as you see, I can like push it down weird like that. But the board balances properly and does everything we need it to. Now, if I turn off hand test mode, I can go through and activate it fine. And fantastic. Our board is properly set up. Sometimes if you have a harsh acceleration or deacceleration, you can experience motor crunch, or sometimes, rarely, you can have weird lightsabering noises happening inside of your board. If you have any of that, go to pev.dev and type in those keywords, and you will have a bunch of guides that will help you troubleshoot to get rid of those nasty side effects. But from everything that I've done, this board works perfectly. And for our LEDs, let's go back to refloat config. Let's go down to the drop down arrow and go to LEDs. Now your LEDs should be working just fine once you download refloat config, but essentially make sure that you have all the things that I have enabled on here enabled and put down. Welcome to my final closing thoughts on the X7. Just to give you context of my board experience and what I've gone through in the past few years. So I started off on a GT, then I moved on to an XR, then I got a Pint, then I got a Vesk Pint, then I got a Vesk XR, now I have a big boy Vesk, now I have the Funwheel. And I'll say this board is like, hits that perfect spot of a powerful GT, but that's still XR ride feel. Yesterday, I went out and shot a bunch of footage with this board, and I got the battery all the way down to about 10% after doing trails for a few hours, and my final mileage was about 15 miles. Setup-wise, I've gone through every single Vesk setup except for GT stuff, and this was the easiest Vesk I have hands down ever made. Only having 2 plugs, I mean, a child could put this board together. The 2 major downsides with the board right now are, of course, the footpad and the BMS. The BMS and the footpad both need some work. But this board is relatively light, pretty damn fast, easy to put together, should be easy to program. It's honestly everything that I wanted when I first bought my GT. This is the easiest economical Vesk build on the market right now. The tire itself, the Thunder tire, I would give a 7 out of 10. It's really nimble, it has a small profile to it, so you can do turns super quickly, but it's also really carvable too. But I like my chunkier boards a little bit more, so it kind of fails on the chunky side. But it's so much better than any other stock tire that I've tried before. God, the stock GT tire, Jesus Christ. To have the insane thermals, the insane torque and speed, all in a lightweight package that is relatively easy to put together and hopefully soon to program. Once the entire X7 build gets its rough edges sanded down a little bit more, this board kicks ass. For real. Hopefully, if you got it to this point, I hope your board is in a pretty good state. I've done my best to try to talk through everything. How long is this video right now? I just want to say thank you, Fungineers. Thank you, Mo, for letting me get this board and trying it out. Thank you for helping me troubleshoot and everything. And thanks for what you've done with the board so far. If I had to rate the entire board, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. If I were to take into consideration the state of the foot pads and the BMS right now, it would lower it down to about a 7.5 out of 10. Hopefully that won't be the case for long, but right now that's where it stands. Is there anything else I can really say here? Nothing's coming on my head right now. You know what the biggest thing Fungineers needs right now? Are beta testers. I feel like so many issues could have been solved if things were beta tested before. Things get pushed out and fixed, and it's not the right way to go about it, but you know, it's the way to sort of go about it, I guess. But we're gonna get there slowly. Hopefully by the time this is released, this board will be in a perfect state, and I will be able to suggest it to anyone that wants to jump into a Vesk build. getting in the vest can be a little bit overwhelming because there are so many values, there are so many technical things, there are so many things that could go wrong and probably will go wrong. And it can be horrifying at first. But I see it as we get so much more control and power out of our boards than anything else. This board can beat out a GTS easy. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, thank you for watching and good luck putting your board together. I just want to say thank you to the vest community and everyone who has taken so much time and patience with teaching me how to go about doing this. When I first started off this journey, I knew nothing about boards whatsoever. I didn't even own a soldering iron I didn't even know how to work a multimeter. But it was through the community which literally held me and breastfed me like a baby. Oh, I mean, the amount of text messages that I have between certain people that go on for hours trying to troubleshoot stuff has been so kind, so fucking helpful. And to anyone who is about to take their first step into this world, go ahead and jump in. There are so many people here that are willing to help and are so kind and gratuitous. There are so many people that have shown so much patience and kindness for no reason to helping me get to where I am today. You know who you are. For real. I don't need to name names. You know exactly who the fuck you are. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your help. I appreciate every single one of you. This has been one of the coolest years of my life so far, and I only have you all to thank for it. So I appreciate you guys. Float on, my friends. Should I like walk off or something? Should I like